Welcome back to the LEC, where Team Vitality and Excel will face off next. Both teams currently sitting on the tables, and they're looking to battle for top 6. I am your fleshy mouthpiece. I'm nothing more than a puppet to regurgitate and analyze, as are these boys. We've got them here. It's Drakos, it's Caedrel. And I want to start, well, at the tippy top of our segment, talking about a bit of the tippy top of the Rift. What do you think?
Well, I think that we might be mere flesh puppets regurgitating analysis, as you so eloquently put it. I think that Alphari and Finn are two players that are always worth talking about. Alphari is a kind of a player that he started a little bit slow, but became a household name very quickly. Finn's path to the top, or at least near the top, was a bit more tragic. He was kind of a liability on Rogue. He was 10th place on CLG. To be honest, when Excel picked him up, I thought this was a horrible choice, but he has proved me wrong so consistently across this entire year.
Yeah, you just look at the stats there. I mean, Alphari's CS difference is kind of through the roof, right? And that's basically what Alphari's been doing throughout his entire career, mostly leaning towards things like the range top laners, picking counter picks, or getting a strong top lane matchup for himself and accruing leads, whereas Finn has just been a bit more flexible for Excel. He's played both sides of it, and I think the biggest reason as to why he's kind of been resurging is the GP pick, just as Drakos talked about. His career has had high highs and low lows. You know, you think of the Rogue days where, yes, they're winning regular seasons, but Finn's always this liability. He's the reason that they're not pushing themselves to that top level. And then, of course, he goes over to NA, goes to CLG. They finished last place, right? It looks like everything's doom and gloom for him. Comes back to Excel, and now they're fighting in the top 3. Incredible transition for him, and I feel like his champion pool is suiting Excel pretty well in terms of the flexibility they need from him.
Yeah. Do you think you're gonna get some pretty thick skin after the path Finn has taken? You're surely gonna be pretty rough to it now, ready for it.
You would think. I mean, the thing that's so great about Finn is I don't think that he's ever come off to me, at least from speaking to him, as jaded. He seems like a guy who's always had a really good attitude, who's always been, despite the failures, despite the struggles, always been able to keep a positive mentality. And seems like he's been a supportive teammate along the way too, which for a lot of players whose careers hit that sharp downward trajectory, they never come back from that. And you can see that negativity throughout the rest of their career. But Finn is absolutely not one of those players.
Yeah, massive bounce back from him. Just talking about the GP, I think these are the picks that we need to keep our eye on, right? GP, I think, is a pick that Alphari will want to play, but so will Finn. I think they're two of our best GP players in the league, and the question is that a first pick worthy champion? I think we're seeing different priorities across the board right now in the world, and especially in Europe, where you've got these, I mean, last game Rogue banned 2 junglers, and then they first picked Taliyah instead of Poppy, so you can see a difference in prioritization there. How high up is GP is the question. How high up is Sylas as well, because both these mid laners love it, and how high up is Taliyah? We saw it in the last game, right? Didn't get as much roaming off as you would want, and did struggle a little bit in that game, but has an insane win rate in the LEC and just provides so much roaming potential for your team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, Drakos, you got anything to add to that?
I was just going to say, we've seen a lot of the Sylas-Taliyah matchup last week. We've seen less of it this week. It seems like people want to experiment more with alternative options and counter picks, and a lot of teams just seem more content banning the Taliyah away. But we've seen there is a path to success with the Sylas counter pick, and I would love to see more of it here, as it has been incredibly popular internationally, and I think it can do quite well. But overall, when push comes to shove, Taliyah just looks like the strongest mid lane champion, and potentially just the strongest champion overall in the current meta. Yeah, and you have picks into it. I mean, we saw Zanzara and Intu saying that the Zoe is a good pick into it, and as much as it might be well in isolation, you can outrange the Taliyah. The power that the champion provides in terms of roam potential is just, it's just so obnoxious to deal with, right? She just pushes you on her tower, moves to sides, and I feel like Perkz has definitely come alive a little bit more when he's able to lean towards these roaming mid styles. We haven't seen so much Lissandra, which is normally like the LPL answer, you know? Right. Lissandra, Taliyah, Sylas is almost like the LPL trifecta.
Interesting. And in terms of this, top lane matchup, we already touched on it, the idea of Alphari, Finn. Is there like a, de facto king of the Gangplank hill in Europe, or is that not? Is that still up for debate?
I think it's up for debate. I think you would assume at the start of the season that it would have been Alphari. Obviously, as a lane-dominant player, builds a lot of individual gold leads. Gangplank is a fantastic champion to do that, gets left alone on a weak side, but Arma's been putting up some fantastic numbers, Finn putting up some fantastic performances as well, so it's up for debate, and I think that this is a match to show us something. There's
so many champions right now in the meta where the game just feels like it revolves around them a lot of the time. I think Taliyah is a very good example where your team will just play for mid and get the roaming off, right? You can try and gank the enemy mid as much as possible, unlock the Taliyah. You got picks like Zeri, which will just take over the game in the later stages. Junglers like Poppy, where if you give the Poppy early dive opportunities, the Poppy will take over. And I feel like Europe isn't using Poppy to its biggest strength right now, which is those early dives in Machine. Did you?
I broke it. I was fiddling with the hat and now I've broken it. I had a question for you and everything.
What's the question?
I'll take the hat with the
well,
broken
you could have it if you get the answer right.
Okay, no.
What's the question?
For the broken party hat, Caedrel.
Yeah.
How many of League of Legends champions have visible nipples? If you had to guess.
5. 6.
Unfortunately,
Do I get to?
thank you.
Do I get a chance?
You get one guess because I have a hat that might fit you.
I'm gonna say 8.
Oh my God, I'm afraid not. If you know the answer, I will send this in the mail to you. I promise. That's a promise. Definitely going to follow up on that.
Now you've got two party.
No, you can't. I wanted to wear them like shoulder pads, like I'm gearing
like
for a mythic raid.
I'm going to fix this to my belt, like some sort of like Batman utility belt. This could be.
But wait, Alex, you've left us hanging. What is the answer?
Oh, 7. Yeah, you were both wrong.
We were so close.
Yeah,
See,
that's the end of that. Let's get into picks and words with a new caster duo. It's Vedi.
We have to team up against him. We have to team up against
50-50 then.
What? How does that have to work?
Thank you so much, Machine. And of course, I don't know if I should say thanks to Drakos and Caedrel. They had a whole little moment there. Welcome back. We are going to be jumping into our third game of the day. It is Team Vitality versus XL. And honestly, I'm very excited for this one here because this could
You're excited to be here,
honestly, yes, I really am. It's very different
like
to casting in my bedroom.
And a big screen.
I know, you're physically people. I know. Finally get a crowd of people who react to what I say. That's nice.
It's rare.
It's
sometimes
very, very
they're
rare.
generous, sometimes not so much. It depends on which fan of a team you are.
Yeah, true. It depends on who I flame or don't flame. That's who they decide. That's what they ask.
But we are going to be casting some fun League of Legends. Now, Vitality and XL, I will say that compared to the LPL, they're probably pretty slow, relatively speaking. But XL do have a pretty good early game.
That's true, and I'm excited for that because at the end of the day, like early game leads to possibilities in the mid, which leads to more things that can happen in the late. It's like, it's like anger leads to hate. Hate leads. That's
what you're hoping for.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for some big, massive openings coming out from both these teams. And honestly, I think it is going to have to come from basically a moment of magic, I feel like, from Team Vitality, because like you said, XL have very good early games. But Vitality, they tend to be a slower burner coming into those mid games. They look to try and be those big moments, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. So we are going to be getting into draft for our third game of the day. But in order to do that, Machine, we have to listen to some cool music. So without further ado...
That was some very cool music.
Nice,
yeah,
right?
It's nice smooth kind of setup, gets the mood set up and everything like that. But we did have chance select. It's gone up, it's gone back down. Now we get it back up here again. So we are going to see the Gwen and the Zeri banned away again. Honestly, the Zeri just feels like a 100% red side ban. We even saw in the last game, you take it, she just takes over team fights. I like to see it taken away.
Kalista, unsurprisingly, also being taken away from Patrik, one of his go-to champions and just one of the staples in the meta right now. Yumi being removed, Lissandra out. These teams are very quick and prepared. Lissandra is one of the go-to picks of Nukeduck. He's been a little bit narrower in his champion pool as we've identified Oisin, and it feels like that this was something that Team Vitality wanted to take away from him. Does wonder if that Taliyah will be the first pick. We've seen it be such a high priority across the board, and there it will be. Perkz, he had a fantastic game on it last week when they played up against Misfits, but of course this does leave things like the Gangplank open, which is also considered one of the best top laners right now. Globals is the name of the game.
I mean, that's the big thing. You look at the two champions that got locked in now, alongside the Wukong, the Taliyah, the Gangplank, you can do so many different things with them. They're not set in a style. They're very flexible. They're very well set and kind of say, we don't know how we're going to have to play the game, but we have options to play it in whatever way we need.
I'm very curious as to how Nukeduck is going to respond, because Vitality have gotten themselves a pretty solid top side. Gnar, very common. Oh, the immediate Ahri locked in, so he's going to stick to the champion puddle that he's kind of had this split, but champions that he's very proficient on. Gives you a pretty solid mid-jungle duo. Of course, the dashes into Taliyah can be quite lethal, but you do have a lot of mobility inherently on Ahri, which does give you options to play around it, and it will be able to allow you to challenge some of the push during the laning phase. So top side locked in for both sides, which means the bot lane now becomes the priority. Ezreal is going to be the first removed. Draven very quick to follow. I immediately think of Xayah in particular for Patrik. He had a very strong performance on it last week, and we've been seeing a lot of the Senna and Tahm Kench come out from Team Vitality to put this bot side on something a little bit more safe and reserved.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, we have also seen kind of like, globally the resurgence of the Jinx Aphelios handshake kind of thing coming back in. So we might see with a couple of more AD carry bans, those less proactive picks in the early game kind of becoming more prevalent. But Tahm Kench going to take away that Senna Tahm Kench combination. So already we're starting to see some big movements here from the side of XL. They know how they want to play this game.
They certainly do. Question is, what will the support direction be? I immediately think of champions like Rakan for Mikyx. He's very prominent on it, gives him a lot of agency, and when we look at XL, right now they have that initial engage of the Wukong. There's good follow-up with both the Ahri and the Gangplank. I think the best way to really round this composition out could be a little bit of disengage. Maybe a Renata could be something they want to go for, or maybe they want just more follow-up engage, which would make Rakan good. But again, more dashes into things like a Taliyah, is that really something that XL want to take?
Yeah, that's the big thing. When you look at the Taliyah, you just have, you know, so many tools to just stop everything you want to do. Think about it. If Nukeduck puts himself on a flank, you put down the Weaver's Wall, where's he supposed to go? There's nothing for him to, and alongside the Unraveled Earth, which we've obviously talked about at length, not really a lot of places to go. So Nukeduck's going to have to be a little bit more creative, shall we say, with his pathing if he wants to try and deal with the Taliyah. The Aphelios that we talked about, very safe. You get that Gale Force spike around that level 6, level 7 mark, and you do have kill potential pretty much on anyone on the side lane.
Let's have a look now what direction Vitality will go for with their bot lane. Well, we see that handshake that you mentioned earlier with the Aphelios locked in. Jinx could be a prime candidate. Ooh, but we're going to get a Sivir Renata bot lane. So, of course, all of the changes have happened to Sivir. Right, wanted to try and push her into like becoming one of the strongest team fight AD carries that we have. A bunch of changes that have happened to her. We're very excited to see her step up in the team fights. How will XL look to round out their composition now? Right now, they're hovering the Zilean, but they have a lot of options at their disposal.
A lot of different options available. Like you said, they can go with harder engage, like you mentioned earlier. The Zilean would help out in the laning phase and does give you that little bit of a can't kill you in the Zilean in the later game. They're going to go for it. So, Mikyx bringing out something of a specialty, shall we say. When he got brought into the XL lineup, this was something that he did rely on, and it has been something that's worked out for XL in the short term as well. So, lots of different things, a lot of different components coming in right now, honestly, just from the laning phase.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this Sivir in particular, because when we think about this bot lane from Vitality, in my opinion, it's been one of their weakest points. And now when you look at like their team fighting prowess, a lot of it is going to be coming from Carzzy. This bot lane needs to have a very solid laning phase, but my expectation is that what Sivir was always good at was just pushing, right?
Very safely.
So many tools to be able
safely
to do that. And I think that it's going to be really interesting to see how XL actually manage that. When we think about their approach to the game, they have this really strong mid-jungle duo. They should have options to play around top as well if they want to. Usually you don't want to play around a Zilean Aphelios lane, which does mean that both teams I expect to kind of play on opposite sides of the map, but perhaps XL will look to do something early on the bot side to try and mitigate some of the pushing power that Vitality should have. It's a really exciting one. A lot of eyes on the bot lane from Vitality in particular, as they need to step up this week as playoffs draw ever closer.
That's absolutely it. I think for XL, expectations have definitely lifted up a little bit for these guys. And for Vitality, they're looking to try and reclaim some of the magic. We'll have to see how they get on in game. And here we are, Berlin. We are jumping into our third game of the day. Quickshot was not lying. They are an energetic crowd.
Yeah.
I did see a couple of them just getting some food, you know, restoring themselves, getting the energies back up. But already Vitality looking to see if someone's being a little bit lazy in the bot side. But on the other side of it, you can see XL doing the same.
It's interesting here as Labrov actually pathed up towards top. He will drop that ward down in the lane to get a little bit of information, see what XL are up to. But XL, they're up to nothing. They dropped that one ward in the bot side river, and perhaps they're setting up for a delayed invade. But for the time being, actually, they may have been setting up for a counter invade. Vitality perhaps looking for that early. Well, I would say what we've been seeing a lot, actually. I'll bring up the minimap to talk about this. We've been seeing a lot of invades from here towards the red to actually then get early information on where the jungler is starting. And I think that XL was preparing for that potential play, especially when you're playing with champions like Taliyah, who love to try and fight for that early push to then give the Trundle a window who can, at level 1, level 2, really fight a lot of junglers early on. I think it makes a lot of sense to be able to try and counter that. But both teams had very different level 1 plans, and it seems that no one is really going to run into one another.
Yeah, and exactly to your point as well, Nukeduck drops down the ward and kind of says, look, we need to know where this Trundle is. Even if we know that he's not in our side of the jungle, we can use that information to our best degree. And now, with the mid lane matchup being the Taliyah versus the Ahri as well, like you said, you will get the push in with the Taliyah, but the Ahri is going to have to be a bit creative. And this is, we mentioned it just very briefly. If you talk about Nukeduck kind of in the first few minutes of the game, or even in the season, I should say, is that he's definitely gone from a champion Ocean to more of a super soaker, precision, focus. Because if you look at some of his previous, champions as such coming into the split, he's had, 10 unique champions, 9, 10, consistently getting in newer ticks to try and make things different in the draft. But it's not been that way this split.
No, historically, historically, Nukeduck has always been a player that showcases a swath of champions that he's very confident on, but obviously to make success. This split, he's been much more focused and tailored towards 4 champions specifically as an all-in happens towards the bot side of the map.
Oh, it does all in. Patrik getting very low. The heal, the shield. And that's enough to keep him alive.
Wow.
So very, very close. But XL already being put under pressure.
Wow. So Vitality leveraging this early push in order to find themselves a bit of early trading success. And we talked about this early 2 versus 2. Labrov and Carzzy, question marks surrounding their early game performance. I have to keep my eyes on Haru here. There could be an opportunity for him to get top lane gank.
Yeah, there definitely is an opportunity, but will it not? It will lead into anything more than a flash. Finn immediately respecting the pillar. And this is really good from Vitality. They're starting to get proactive. They're really starting to put a bit of pressure. And that ward knows they know exactly where Markoon is on the side of XL.
So, a lot of things happening across the board. Haru actually starting on the bot side of the map and then pathing immediately to top. Notice that he did red into Raptors, into Gromp, into a top lane gank, which Finn was definitely not expecting. Markoon wasn't really in a position to cover it because he was doing much more of a full clear, slower topside path. And that meant that Haru was able to force the flash out. Meanwhile, Carzzy and Labrov were hard pushing bot, which kind of suggests that the jungler is also shadowing you in that situation. So I think it definitely caught Finn off guard.
Ahri doesn't have smite. I think Markoon has an inkling that he doesn't, so he's trying to be as big of a nuisance as he possibly can. He can't really use the decoy, though, to go in to steal it. It would be his only real escape. So with the cover of Alphari, we will see Haru do get his hands on the blue and back himself away. But again, small little moments like that, they can be a bit dicey depending on how you react to them.
Certainly can. But a lot of things happening in this early game. No first blood has been drawn just yet. Props to the Vitality bot lane coming very close to securing a 2v2 kill. This is the type of performance we need to be seeing from them, especially after recent weeks. Their laning has been a struggle. We've been seeing them die in the 2 versus 2. We've been seeing Carzzy in particular kind of underperforming compared to the expectations that especially this team has put on their shoulders. But leveraging that early push, forcing the cleanse and the heal out from Mikyx and Patrik is definitely the type of start that Vitality needs. So they've gotten Finn's flash, they've gotten his TP, they've gotten Summoner's bot, which does give them a lot more options, in particular for Haru to look for something. They're now trying to get the push in mid for Perkz to look for a back. And the main reason for this, for those interested, is this summoner spell difference. Just cleanse on the side of Perkz and TP on the side of Nukeduck. So Perkz kind of needs that assisted push in order to be able to get a clean recall so that he can then get in back to lane in time, so that he doesn't lose too much tempo on the map compared to Nukeduck, who can just immediately TP.
Yeah, absolutely. You do have Summoner Spellbook, though, for both mid laners, so they will be able to mix it up just a little bit as the later game comes in, and we're going to be keeping a close eye on that because we have seen some sneaky mid laners taking some smites for those later objectives, as we can see now Markoon with Mikyx trying to see if he can make something hurt, but Labrov's here. It's going to be a bit of a support jungle 2v2 now in the bot side jungle.
Well, it's important to note that Perkz is on his way back to lane. Nukeduck needs to reset. Haru, there's just going to be a bit of dancing back and forth as the AD carries are also not really moving up to assist. With the arrival of Perkz, though, that means the Vitality has control, and you can see this Trundle, he just wants to base. He's like, all right, I've had enough.
I've done so much.
Come on, let me go home. I need to spend my gold. He will be able to pick up that Sheen. There we are, XL and Vitality dead even for the first 6 minutes. Is this common in the LPL?
Honestly, a lot of LPL teams kind of throw it at someone. It's usually not until the first dragon that they see them go absolutely ham
so
and
look for stuff.
It's quite normal, quite content, you know. It's just become a little bit of a... Oh, Alphari will get the stun against the wall. Finn is very close to dead. One more auto attack will do it. And that is Alphari with the lane dominance on the Gnar.
The level 6 advantage meant that Finn, without his flash, had no way to get away. Vitality leveraging their strong laners. And this is something that, you know, we've commented on for a very long time regarding Vitality. They've always had very good, very reliable laners, and Alphari in particular is someone that you can count on to get ahead in the lane. This is going to be a massive wave that Finn is going to lose out on. A 2-level lead now in favor of Alphari means that Vitality are going to balloon up to a 500 gold lead.
And this is the big thing as well. The Gnar just gives you so many options available to you. You can split push, you can try and team fight with it. There's so many things you can work with this pick, and getting it ahead off of, honestly, just one gank, really, which was the flash earlier, which we saw, capitalizing on that. Really well played from Alphari, and it's something that he's been doing pretty consistently. His CS numbers in the split have been absolutely monstrous. He really does know how to play the laning phase. It's just the big thing we always say with Vitality is after the laning phase, how do they kind of transition that?
That's going to be one of the big questions, and why I'm very excited to see this Sivir in action. Of course, a number of changes have happened to the champion. A lot of shifting around in terms of power. but she's still that, I can hit everyone in the team fight and I can make people run real fast. Ultimately boiled down to. And yeah, you can see right now some of her wave clearing prowess. This is one of the difficult things. Typically, one of the weaknesses of Sivir is that she has a relatively short range, but now she does get that heal every time she spell shields. It does mean that she might have a few more mana issues, but it gives her a little bit more durability during the laning phase, but her wave clear is still as strong as ever. And as I was saying, the range can sometimes be a problem, especially in teamfights, but when you have as much setup as she does, especially with the Renata being able to provide effective peel, Alphari being that primary engage tool, I'm excited to see how she does into this matchup.
Haru smells something. He knows he can make something work here as Finn gets caught again. Still no flash. He was 5 seconds away from that summoner, and that is just good timing there from Vitality.
And now the worst part for Finn is this wave can just get frozen on by Alphari if he wants to. There's still no TP available for Finn. Okay, it looks like that given that he just wants to clear out the wave, he wants to push underneath the tower, also perfectly fine. Try and make Finners lose as much as possible to get that wave bouncing back towards him. Mikyx now makes his way towards mid.
Yeah, no seismic shove here. Perkz will get stunned up, which means with the cleanse he has, he should be able to keep himself safe. But good roam from Mikyx, getting that summoner out as well. And this is kind of something that we need to see a little bit more from XL. That we talked about their great early games, but right now it's kind of Vitality making the plays, forcing the tempo and kind of saying, no, you're dancing to the beat of our drum.
Well, so much of this comes back down to Haru's early pathing. And I think that when we look at expectations, the typical play is you play towards your strong side of the map, which would be your bot side if you're Vitality. Carzzy and Labrov have pushed. They want to fight. They want to try and go for exchanges. And we saw that, right? Level 2, all in, go for a fight, summoners burn. There's a real risk that if your jungler isn't there to cover, they could end up losing their lives. So the expectation is for Markoon, he's like, hey, they can live bot side. I can actually assist top side. But that's not what happened at all. Haru actually pathed up towards top. Finn was just pushing in his wave under the assumption that bot was going to have jungler support. Jungler then shows up, he loses his flash, and then Alphari takes advantage of that, and then they take advantage of it again. So Vitality's whole early game plan of actually trying to attack Finn and the top side while enabling Alphari has given them a pretty sizable gold lead for the time being. You can see at the bottom of your screen, 1,000 gold is the advantage for Alphari over Finn right now.
Yeah, pretty big, and not only that as well, they got themselves the Rift Herald, and this is a bit contrary to a lot of the things that I was looking into this week, because if you look at XL's kind of early game stats as such, they are pretty damn high when it comes to first blood percentage, first tower, first dragon, first herald. They're basically first across the board. 2 of those metrics they just cannot get, because we're going to have a look at top side. 2v2 happening, but it's actually a 3v2 as Mikyx forced a flash away. You do not have your ult at the moment. You can kill in a Zilean, and he will be going down. Perkz is here and still has plenty in the back pocket to get Vitality. That is 4-0, and this is starting to become a bit of an issue now for XL.
It doesn't matter who you send topside, Haru's ganking it. And now with the Herald, they can look to secure their first tower of the game. Vitality have come into week 6 looking revitalized.
This is a big moment of momentum here as Vitality are just crushing them right now. They'll get the tower. Thank you, Berlin crowd, for the Herald cheer. And of course, we'll see even more coming into the side of Vitality. But not only that, they got gold onto the Sivir, the late game Sivir. That's going to be your insurance policy. It's just kind of moved up a few months.
And you kind of look at the bottom of your screen and you can see all the blue going in favor of Vitality. They have advantages across the board now. Only really the difference in mid, but that's going to disappear very quickly. And this bot lane, just they go for the all-in. It looks like a bit of a trap from Labrov as he gets too close to Mikyx, but Mikyx's so squishy, especially without the level 6. Then Patrik, all he can do is offer protection, but he ends up losing his life here. Just a really clean collapse overall from Vitality. And I think he just chose not to use the summoner spells there because he realized, you know what, even if I flash in the tower, I'm still probably dead. They're just going to dive me. Haru can tank it. Perkz is on his way. What can I do? But wow, a completely different look for Vitality. I've been very skeptical of the team. I think that they haven't really shown a very clear identity in terms of how they want to approach the early game and really what they then do. But let's see how they leverage this lead, right? It's one thing to be able to build a lead. It's another thing to be able to then use it to close out a game. There's still a lot left to be played. And Nukeduck finds himself with his first core item completed. I imagine that the first Drake will be given up, perhaps in exchange for something else on the map. But for the time being, Vitality using their early prior very well.
He does have cleanse back, so we should be able to cleanse off the Gravitum stun. The Zilean is coming in from the bot side as Perkz maybe fancies the 1v1. Patrik thinking he can maybe take this one. Does get the proc down. Gonna have the Cannon Barrage come in as well, but he waited so patiently. Patrik really well done there, able to make sure he was able to get the cleanse out and still get the CC.
So a good response from Patrik. Just punishes Perkz on a side lane. I don't think Perkz was expecting to die in a 1v1, but surprise, Finn's ultimate is kind of what changed the game there. A lot of additional damage. Perkz was forced to cleanse, as you identified. And then with Mikyx showing up, they're able to secure that kill. So at the very least, XL find themselves now on the board. Still a 2k gold deficit though, given that towers are continuing to fall and Vitality are getting plates and CS leads across the board. Now Finn is a little bit concerned here about a potential dive. He does have that control ward to spot out around the blue buff to see if there's any real threat. And looks like he's going to be fine for the time being, as the rest of Vitality are on the top side of the map. But no objectives on the board for now, so I expect to just see a lot of wave clearing and not a huge amount of action for the next few minutes.
Yeah, we can kind of zoom out a little bit away from this particular game, or more so into what this particular game means, because I'm going to stop myself for a second, as Nukeduck's going to go straight into a charmed Taliyah. Perkz going to go golden. They do have the hostile takeover, which will take over Patrik, but everyone just kind of breaks themselves away. Nothing else really happens. Couple of ultimates burn, but outside of that, nothing really to be singing about. But as you can say on this left-hand side of your screen, Vitality, they would love this win. It will bring them back into the conversation of maybe a top 4, a top 3 moving into it, and not just a maybe for the playoffs later on in the split.
It wouldn't help us determine who was the strongest in the league right now, but it definitely would make the league a lot more competitive in those playoff spots, and in particular world spots, hyper-competitive, with Europe now securing a 4th seed. It's things are getting very contentious at the top of the board, and as you rightly said, they would find themselves tied with XL, which is a very different. You'd only be 1 win behind Rogue then after their loss earlier in the day, and you can see how all of a sudden that race for playoffs is suddenly a lot closer, and a lot of seeds are up for grabs. So this could be big, but we'll see if Vitality can maintain their composure for the time being. No Herald up, no Dragon up, so now like we're just kind of looking for picks, fighting for vision, playing for side lane towers. I kind of expected Vitality to play a little bit more towards the bot side of the map. I understand why they would put their Sivir here, but I think that what they could be doing is leveraging this mid-prior, which is very easy for them to get, and actually, we can see them doing it now. Slowly start to move towards the bot river, invest in this deeper vision, and then start threatening these bot tower plates, because this is where you can secure gold, and as the plates obviously have fallen off 15 seconds ago, they can actually convert this into a tower. So this makes a lot more sense to me. The fact that Vitality was investing so much of their resources towards the top side was a little bit of a time waster, but now they've kind of realigned their focus, I guess you can say. And they've been able to get
the flash forward here from Markoon, trying to catch out Perkz, who does not have flash, does not have cleanse, and does not have a life. 0-2 now on the Taliyah, but Haru wants to try and make something back. At least getting the flash out of Patrik would be nice, but Patrik's got himself a Severum, so he's totally fine.
Okay, so this is one of the downsides of committing all your resources bot side. It does leave you vulnerable on the top side. Perkz, thinking he should be able to safely secure the blue, was not expecting Markoon to flash in and fully commit to that 1v1, and he was able to find it. Good pick from XL. They find themselves another kill, but the gold gap only gets bigger because Vitality is securing the tower. They're going to convert this into a Herald, and this is going to be really important in being able to break the mid tower. So right now, things are very formulaic for Vitality. They're a little bit slower than I think they could be, but that doesn't matter because at the end of the day, they're getting what they want, they're getting what they need, and they're continuing to build that lead.
Yeah, XL thinking about maybe going for a contest on this Rift Herald, but very difficult here with Labrov playing Bouncer. You don't have to go home, mate. You just can't stay here. And now you've got that Herald in the back pocket. You're going to try and look to maybe use that, as you said, into the mid lane, but not only just to try and break the tower, but also to try and pressure around this dragon that's spawning in a minute 15.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, actually, because it guarantees you that mid-prior, which then gives you access into the river, and they're keeping Alphari bot because he doesn't have that TP available. Perkz doesn't have a TP, but he does have the ultimate, making it easier for him to rotate from the side and then regroup with the rest of his team. But core items are starting to get completed. We can see the Trinity Force now finally picked up for Finn. He has had a rough early laning phase, and Alphari has leveraged the strength of Gnar to really bully him in the 1v1, along with repeated jungle ganks. The fans still hold strong, believing
they
in
need
XL.
to bring the energy, because my god, this game is not at the moment. But I always want big team fights, you know? That's what I look for.
Well, you may very well get them. This next Drake, I expect to be quite contentious between the two teams. With core items being completed, Perkz actually hasn't picked his up just yet. I wonder how close he is. You know, you have a little gold button.
I do.
If you press the gold, we can actually look at how much gold they have.
I think it's this one. I'm pretty sure.
No. That's the total gold by Santander.
That is the total gold by Santander. So it's, you're going to have to screw over. You're going to come over here.
There you go. So now we can see the gold at the bottom of our screen, right?
yes.
And this will tell you how much gold they're sitting on, and you can see that Perkz is getting very close to having enough money to be able to buy his first item.
Oh, well, Nukeduck's in a lot of trouble. He's caught between a pillar and a hard place. Flash in by Carzzy. One more auto attack, but there's just so much mobility on this Ahri. Now Haru really stuck between himself and the rest of the enemy team. But Markoon, you flashed earlier, which means you don't have it now. He gets flashed on by Haru, and that's another kill here for Vitality. Shelly was still pushing in that top side. Mikyx needs to be careful. He needs to change his trajectory because he is not in a good spot. Flashes over the pillar of ice as Patrik tries to defend the rest of his team. That tier 2 is very, very, very low, but I don't think they're going to be able to get on this wave.
You can see Nukeduck as well, committing to the bot side of the map, trying to secure himself a tower in exchange, but Vitality are just dominating on the top side of the map right now.
I mean, you know that Nukeduck just TP'd bots. You know there's not going to be enough, but you might have gone a little bit too far forward. They really wanted that tower. It cost them a couple more flashes, and the tower still survives. That's a little bit overzealous there from Vitality, and like we said, a bit weird, but that means that all the pressure they've drawn from XL up topside opens up that mid lane tier 1.
So Vitality continue to get more objectives on the map. They gain more control. They may end up losing this Drake in exchange because they've invested so much time and resources towards the top side of the map, but breaking down that mid tower will still at the very least give them something. But let's have a look back. I expected them to use this Herald mid, but they decided to commit to it top. They instead wanted to try and leverage this pressure top and then rotate down into mid lane, which then resulted in this big fight. But a really good wall comes out from Perkz that separates the back line from the front line, basically leaving Markoon isolated. And a really good Renata ultimate as well from Labrov forces Patrik and Mikyx to start fighting each other rather than their opposition. So overall, just a really well played fight, good execution. The only downside for Vitality is that they weren't able to convert that top tier 2 tower.
I always love the Renata ultimate because it's like betrayal never comes from an enemy. It's always a friend. It's always a friend who betrays you. But we'll say, though, with the amount of topside priority that Vitality were able to garner for themselves, it did mean XL were able to sneak themselves in and get themselves that dragon. Speaking of sneaking in, Markoon and Nukeduck, 3 seconds till the flash. They're looking for it, and they're going to try and fully commit to him as soon as he goes into meta. The charm is good. Alphari knows he's as good as dead, and that is a shutdown over to Nukeduck.
I respect that Alphari committed to getting the cannon minion before he died.
100%.
You know, man's got his priorities straight. But yeah, that was a good pick from XL. They were able to find something, but again, the exchange on the cross map, Vitality, that tower was basically guaranteed to go down. XL didn't feel the need to try and defend it, and there's not much they can do about contesting this mid wave, so they instead looked for a pick on the bot side, and Alphari slightly overextended, wasn't expecting the play, which means that they ended up trading a kill for a tower. But now Vitality continuing to push this. Look at how much control they have around the top side of the map. Our observers are highlighting it right now. All of this vision that Vitality have in their favor means that XL is basically blind around this top side, and it sets up Vitality for this Baron that is spawning in 20 seconds. Does that mean that they're immediately going to go for it? No. But they have that option, and it adds that extra bit of pressure. And you know that Perkz as a player is always coming up and always going to make those calls to be a little bit creative, take those gambles, and it wouldn't surprise me if he just said, hey, I've spotted this person here, let's actually just go for a Baron. And you can take it very quick with Taliyah right now, with Trundle as well.
They're looking for it again. Trying to be sneaky, but I think Alphari's happy with the Krugs. Krugs gives a nice little bit of gold. He's also got 2 items, already completed the Gangplank chainsword, so really getting himself up to a nice split push position as Nukeduck with his Banshee's Veil getting popped should be able to just run away from this one. And this is the thing with the Ahri. The Ahri has got such great side lane pressure because she, with the Everfrost and the Banshees now, so difficult to actually kill.
And alongside the spellbook, it gives her a lot of options too.
Yeah.
Running the heal right now means that she's even harder to lock down. So much extra mobility as well. But overall, Vitality found themselves in a really good position here in the mid game. 20 minutes in, 5-3 in kills, 3,000 is the gold lead, and they're working on their second items. In fact, Carzzy's finished his 2 core items. He was struggling a little bit in the laning phase. He was falling a little bit behind in CS, even though he was able to get the push repeated times. But now he seems to be back in control with a 1.1k gold lead over his lane opponent. But Patrik, sacrificing, upgrading his boots, instead going for the BT, suggests that they are preparing for a fight that should be soon to come. 2 minutes until the next Drake. XL would love to get it because then it gives them a very clear win condition. Not only will it deny Drakes away from Vitality, but kind of gives them that scaling window. It's one of those things that then I come back to is like, can they rely on the scaling window? It's Sivir. And,
it's a pretty decent scaling.
For anyone that remembers the good old 500 CS Sivir, Reckless was in fact famous for it.
Anivia.
Yeah, it's just one of those where she can wave clear so effectively that she can just stall out games, especially when she has control. Like, she just melts waves like you just saw, and it means that Vitality can very quickly move into the fog of war.
Established vision control on the bot side. Labrov trying to just put down those vision wards as best he possibly can to maybe catch someone out. Remember, you got that seismic shove coming out here from Perkz, so one person goes a little bit too far forward and they're going to be in some serious trouble. And this is the power of the Taliyah. You can drop down the Weaver's Wall, which forces out your global. Should be enough to clear out this wave, but even then you're gaining pressure, you're gaining standing in this bot side jungle. And again, Vitality, I gotta give them, you know, some pretty good, you know, praise right now. They are moving themselves as a unit and their vision to make sure they can get the most out of it.
Yes, they are. Right now, their main focus is the next Drake spawning in about a minute's time. XL want access into the river, they're going for it.
They're gonna go for it. Nukeduck did use the Spirit Rush. No one else has really used anything on the side of Vitality except from the flash from Labrov. He recognized he was in a bad position and didn't want to get caught out. Now Nukeduck doesn't have an ultimate, so Vitality in a position of power to kind of choose which one they want to go for. The Dragon not up for 40 seconds, and Vitality have shifted their focus back up towards that top side, towards that Baron.
I think right now they're just trying to clear out a bit of vision, leverage their mid prio to see what's going on the top side river and then immediately move back. So here we are, we see them moving back down now towards where the Dragon is as Alphari pushes in that bot wave. I like the window with which XL used to try and attack, because they were trying to attack Vitality during the setup of the objective, which was kind of where they're the most scattered, where they're each trying to clear out wards, trying to get a little bit of information. But good response from Vitality overall to recognize that Nukeduck was looking for that pick, and they were able to push him off. He did have the Banshees, which meant that he wasn't really in any danger. I think the knock-up that would have been landed by Perkz ended up being spell shielded, which means that he was able to get to safety. But yeah, a very relatively slow but overall controlled game from Vitality. I've been very impressed with how they've been playing the map. I find that often their early games have been so mixed that it's hard for them to get to this state, but you can see that when they actually have control, they're playing the mid game very effectively. But
they are.
Yep.
Look at the Baron though. They got themselves a trade of a Dragon and a turret, but here comes the Baron trade here as XL are saying, look, they're melting it because you've got an Aphelios. There's nothing you can do to respond here. That's a tower and an objective, but I think XL are going to be happier with theirs.
Yeah, I think that was just a really good response from XL, because they recognized that Vitality was playing very strongly towards one side of the map at the time. And Alphari, even though he did have TP, at least I believe he had TP, Perkz couldn't respond in time. So with XL having so much control over the top side and making that trade happen, that gave them the window to just rush down the Baron. And with the 2-item Aphelios, you saw how quickly they were able to melt it. So props to XL. They saw a window and they took it. Now this makes the game much more even, and why I said that there's still a lot left to be played for, because we're getting closer to that. The next team fight could determine everything.
And this comes back to what we talked about Vitality, is saying, like, look, their mid-game has been a bit all over the place, shall we say, the decision making. It's been nice from Vitality, but now we can see that they're going to go for a big fight here. TP coming off the backside of this, the Weaver's Wall trying to separate Patrik from the rest of his team. Alphari is mega. He's found one person, but a good flash as Patrik tries to get away. He's got himself the chrono break, so he's going to be able to stay alive. Markoon now, as we can see, a great ultimate of the hostile takeover. Patrik will not die. Eventually he will fall, but you've traded it back. It's a 1-for-1 as now Vitality look to reset the fight. Nukeduck is still doing very well as Alphari takes down the Monkey King. It was a good play from Vitality. They recognized that XL were overextended.
Vitality with the aggression this time around, trying to set up a collapse, utilizing the TP, but things looked a little bit shaky at the very start of the fight, and we can see it come in here. Perkz uses the wall to try and separate them, has to jump off early because he's worried about committing by himself. The rest of the team wasn't ready. Then Alphari locks down onto Patrik, is able to still land the Mega Gnar even though he flashes away. But look at how long Patrik survives for, because he gets that revive and then he's going to get all of this heal. Meanwhile, Markoon has access to the backline, but he's isolated on the backline, so they turn their attention. Haru and Perkz are focused on Patrik, who comes very close to being able to turn the fight around. Meanwhile, as the rest of XL are backing away from the fight, Markoon realizes, wait, there's nothing I can do now. I'm just left in a 1v1 against Alphari, and there's nothing I can do about that. So Vitality end up coming out on top of the fight once more, and this Baron is just losing value very quickly as XL can't convert it into any objective.
Yeah, the Red Bull Baron power play not really doing the level you want. You get 1,500 gold straight off the bat. They're now only at a plus 500 gold, so down 1,000 off the initial play. Now you're onto a 3-item Alphari. Now you're onto a 3-item Perkz. You're closely getting to a 3-item Sivir for Carzzy. This is a very scary Vitality in XL. It just feels like they're not really finding the right moves. They're not really finding the right tempo because they're just being called on their bluffs every time by Vitality.
And you can see how difficult it is for XL to siege as well. The Sivir just doing so much work. She just melts minion waves. Minion. Don't know why that word was so hard.
Yeah, it's like watching too much LFL.
Yeah.
Minion. Well, we'll see a wave of
Nukeduck.
confused. They are very confused. Where do we go? Where do we come from? Cotton Eye Joe.
I knew you were going to say it.
It's got to be said every single time, but I did like that they're looking for something here. And again, Patrik doesn't have any summoners. He uses Cleanse, uses Flash in that last fight, so he has to be very, very aware that if Haru lands a Pillar of Ice, he's in a lot of trouble.
So what we're seeing right now is a bit of an ARAM. The reason why we're seeing it is because if you look at the minimap, you can see there's no real objectives to play on sides. There's no neutral objective to fight over. Baron is gone and Dragon is gone, which means that teams are just kind of contesting over the mid wave because then they can leverage that to try and gain access into one side of the jungle. And because Vitality have the Sivir, they do get that push in mid, and then they send Perkz up top, and now they've gotten that control of the top side jungle. So that's why you often see those ARAMs, because getting that mid prio is super important and being able to do something somewhere on the map. And the best way to get mid prio is to leverage your numbers, and well, the best, 5 people, most numbers.
You know what?
So, if you send 5, we'll send 5.
The math checks out. All right. I like how you're explaining it to me as if, like, look, I know look, you're from the LPL. I don't want to give like a false thing. This is why it's happening. Right? I don't think this is the norm. Yeah. It's like a superintendent to a principal.
Well, it's funny because I remember having this conversation with a pro not too long ago, and they were kind of like, sometimes the ARAM has to happen, and I was like, oh really? Like, talk to me about it. And so that's they're all very much like, sometimes there's just nothing really for you to play for on the map, and so sometimes you have to fight for the mid wave. And if they're going to send 5 people, then you have to send 5 people.
Because you're probably going to lose if you don't send 5.
Because they'll fight you if you don't have 5, right? So, but now the map is a little bit more scattered. Now they've moved more towards their side lanes, and you can see Vitality are setting up for the Drake, and XL recognize that, okay, we're willing to sacrifice this. We don't have to fight this. Let's see if we can actually get the top tier 2 tower, and they've just committed Finn towards the top side. He's level 16, so props to him for still staying relevant in the game. He's really been shut down in the early game, but he's done a good job of still having an impact with his itemization and experience.
Now, speaking of itemization, you can see Alphari has a stopwatch and an elixir of iron. So he's ready for the next fight. He's ready to kind of say, look, the next time XL try and step up, I'm going to tell them to step out, because I'm going to be a big boy, and I'm going to have a lot of different utility to kind of work with this one here. And I will say, though, the longer this kind of stalling comes out from Vitality, as they do get themselves up to the solve point, this is going to get to a point, I feel like we are going to have that big 5v5. It becomes less relevant about, what items you have and more about how you're executing around those fights, because the AD carries, massive. The mid laners, massive. The top laners, Gangplank barrels are getting pretty big right now, Vedi.
For sure. I think that both teams have pretty good scaling. It's a little hard for me to say which one I actually prefer when it comes to the late game fights, because I think both teams have a lot of options. Inherently, I would say Taliyah Sivir gives you a lot of options when it comes to straight front to back, but Gangplank can change a lot.
He's going to keep running. He ain't stopping. He's going to keep running, but he's now got a Sivir in the way. Yeah, he tried to keep his flash for so long, but has to use that, unfortunately, there. But again, you have to use a lot there from the side of Vitality. Weaver's Wall no longer down, but they do have priority over Baron.
Huge props to Perkz. His Taliyah performance last week against Misfits was very solid, but I like his utilization of the walls. He is hyper-aggressive with them. He will always try and find angles to cut off routes. As we see now, Nukeduck TPing in, but Vitality have control around the Baron, and they're just going to start this one off.
There is a scuttle vision, though, so you can know XL have a pretty decent idea that this is going down. They pop down the Scryers as well to make sure Markoon gets caught a little bit, but Perkz just kind of keeping everybody away. The Baron not getting taken very quickly because not a lot of people from Vitality are on it. Haru's going to have to back himself away. As Vitality, they're a little bit split on the decision. They don't know if they want to go for the fight or finish off the Baron.
They have that top wave pushing in as another point of pressure. Alphari could be in a little bit of danger here, but he's just going to bounce away. Could this give XL access to the mid-tier 1? It looks like that it does, but they don't want to commit. So instead they're saying, all right, we need to go catch these waves. Vitality have been forced off the Baron, so it'll buy them a little bit more time. But this next dragon that spawns in 3 minutes, that's the one that XL have to fight. Admittedly, their items have come in. Now you can see the Infinity Edge finished for Patrik. He's feeling much stronger. Death Cap done for Nukeduck, level 16 as well. If they can just get that 3rd item finished for Finn, I think XL will feel a lot more confident. But with this gold difference, at this point in the game, it's not that dramatic. I would say this game is still very close, and as you identified, it's likely going to come...
You gotta love to see it.
Cheeky blue steal from Alphari, but it's ultimately going to come down to that big team fight, and as you rightly said, all about the execution. So let's see if Vitality can pull off what will effectively be an upset win against XL.
I like this from Vitality, kind of wagering themselves stronger, because we actually didn't see it, but Finn used the Cannon Barrage in that last exchange, so he has that on cooldown for the moment. They know there's a small window where that global isn't there, but you've got the LDR, the Lord Dominic's regards now for Finn. He is getting pretty scary. Patrik finally turns his brown bags into some nice shiny shoes of Berserker Greaves, and now we can start to see them go for something. Mikyx, ooh, careful there, my son. You need to be very, very careful when walking into that fog of war.
Shirelli is keeping him nice and safe.
Oh, Perkz. He wants a 1v1. Forces out the ultimate from Nukeduck. Did have the exhaust in the back pocket of the spellbook, but you see Perkz, he's trying to make this one work, but it might be turned on to him. Carzzy.
This is the charm there from Nukeduck. Could have been big, but Carzzy also quite quick on the spell shield response. But just a lot of dancing back and forth right now between the two teams. Vitality maintain control over the topside river, though. There is this one ward in the pit, but it will be spotted out. The Baron has now been started once again by Vitality.
Here we go. Now it will be shredded a little bit quicker, we'll say. Haven't got everyone here just yet. The Gnar is still down the bot side. You will have to commit a TP. He's not really close to the Mega Gnar just yet, and Vitality recognize this, so they don't want to take a fight just yet. Now you've lost a flash off of Perkz. You've lost a little bit of momentum on the top side. And we're just seeing it's the dance of the Baron right now. It's, you know, step in, step out, to the left, little twirl. It's just about who takes the lead that you want to be looking towards.
And I think Vitality are... I think they're playing a little more cautiously than they need to, but it's understandable why they're doing it, right? They're in a very good position right now. They know they have a very clear win condition, which is 4 Drakes. And they only need to wait another minute for it to spawn. Testing the waters around Baron is not a bad choice when you... rather than fully committing to it. They don't need to flip that Baron, and they don't need to give XL that window back into the game. All they need to do is be patient and see what they can take. And right now, they haven't really lost anything in terms of this dance back and forth with XL. But now, this is the big fight. This is the big determiner as to whether or not XL can bounce back, or if Vitality will run away with the game.
Yeah, important to note as well, Carzzy did pick up a Guardian Angel, so not alongside that spell shield. He's got himself a little guy upstairs, keeping an eye on him should he go a little bit too far forward. You can see XL struggling so much to just try and gain themselves back any kind of position here. Markoon does get himself over the wall, so will be spotted out. Doesn't have the decoy right now, maybe force the flash. The Weaver's wall is going to be good to try and separate them away, but XL have a position here where they might try and burn down Alphari, who goes Mega and bounces away. The Dragon hasn't even spawned yet, Venny, and that will finally be here, but Finn gets knocked back. They've popped down the Zilean ultimate so they can leave him. That's no longer available to you on XL. They're going to try and maybe look for a little bit of a pick, but Patrik's already so low, and it looks like XL, they don't really have the resources to take this fight, and Vitality get themselves the Ocean Soul.
It felt like the fight was over before it even started. Markoon was left on an island as he tried to look for a flank, but Vitality spotted him out, forced him into a confrontation with Alphari, who just bought a lot of time. He got resources from Nukeduck, he got skills out from Markoon, and meanwhile on the other side of the fight, Vitality was forcing XL into this choke point. Now they move towards the Baron.
I mean, you can keep going in and out of this one because you have yourself the Ocean Soul. The good flick back there onto Nukeduck means that he's forced to flash away, and you're just losing more and more resources, more and more tools that you can use to maybe turn a fight. And XL, they're kind of running out of options.
They certainly are. Vitality are just keeping XL at arm's length. They're really just chipping away at them, and
here we go! Massive ultimate into the flick back, the solo layers of Vitality in perfect synergy, and XL, they're routed, they're running home as Nukeduck knows he needs to try and kill this wave, otherwise it's going to be game over.
Perfect ultimate comes in from Alphari. XL wanted to keep the dance going, but Vitality said, nope, this will be our finale, and they played it beautifully. The wombo combo was clutch, and Vitality will now find themselves with a big win over XL.
Yeah, they're going to be able to push in through this mid lane. They don't even care about the minions. They'll finally be able to get them to kind of join in the parade, but really well done. Very patient play from Vitality, and the most important win that they needed. We will have another fight coming in. As we can see, there's the Berserk from Markoon as he tries to make this one a little bit of a harder work here. The ace comes out, the Nexus turrets have fallen, and Vitality will tie up XL at 7 wins and 5 losses.
An impressive win overall from Vitality. Arguably the cleanest that they've looked all split. Like, we've definitely seen some good games from them, some bad games from them, but from start to finish, it felt like that we saw consistency from all of their laners. We saw a commitment towards one side of the map in the early game. They invested resources into Alphari. He was able to use those resources everywhere else on the map, and it felt like that Vitality, outside of making like a few stumbles in terms of getting picked here and there, they had a super clean game, so massive props to them, because as you rightly said, tying with XL now in the standings puts them in a much more comfortable position when it comes to qualifying for playoffs.
It really, really does. And I think, again, you know, so much expectation on this roster. The players, the name values alone, you would definitely be seeing them a lot higher. There finally feels like, today specifically, this is a big moment here, a big momentum shift for the kind of attitude that we have for this team.
It certainly is. The question is, can they maintain it, right? Like, they've gotten a big win today. They still need a lot of wins to be able to qualify for playoffs. But you look at our standings right now, they find themselves at 7 wins, 1 game behind Mad, 1 game behind Rogue. And of course, Mad yet to play. But if they do lose later in the day against Fnatic, Vitality's first seed spot is still a very viable option if they can keep that momentum. And that's just how close the league is right now.
I mean, it's such a great way to kind of put it as well. We're into week 6, coming into like the final 2.5 weeks of play, if you will. And we still don't really have a definitive #1. We don't have a definitive, you know, top 6, if you will, either. And that's just kind of slowly creeping itself up to become, you know, nicer and nicer to kind of, you know, tune in and like honestly be a part of this kind of league. But for the key player of the game at LEC on Twitter, it's between Alphari, Haru, and Carzzy. Honestly, it could have been any of the 5. I genuinely think this was a team effort and it worked out fantastic. Haru in the early game was exceptional. Alphari in the late game.
I think for me, Alphari was the standout. I think that he like
I wanted to be nice.
I know you did,
I wanted to be nice and neutral.
Alphari. It was Alphari, let's be honest. He leveraged the fact that once the flash was burnt from Haru in the top lane, he was the one that then won his 1v1 up towards top. He kept winning his 1v1, and then the final team fight is kind of where he put the nail in the coffin, right? So in my opinion, he was the standout performer in today's game.
And I mean, it's fair enough to kind of put that towards Alphari as well, because I think a lot of criticism has been thrown his way in terms of, you know, after the laning phase and how he's been able to perform. Today he showed up, and I think that's a very big moment here for Vitality. And honestly, just very exciting to see what they can do. I think Perkz, still being probably the most decorated Western player in, you know, in the history of League of Legends, is someone who's going to be constantly pushing your team. And I think the Taliyah pick, like we saw today and last week, it's kind of becoming a must-ban, must-pick against him because he's just too good.
For me, it just feels like that Vitality have struggled a lot this split with how they want to prioritize in draft, what lanes they want to prioritize in the early game, how they even want to approach the early game. Because I think that their knowledge and understanding of how to play the map is definitely there. And sure, they dropped the Baron. They dropped the ball a little bit around that objective, but we saw a clear early game plan. They wanted to invest resources in Alphari. Their bot lane was a lot more consistent. Their comp made a lot more sense. It was just a lot of positives to be taken away from Vitality this game.
Really, really was. We're going to toss it over to Frankie, who's sitting by with the victorious Carzzy.
Thank you very much, guys. And Oisin, welcome to the LEC. It's fabulous to be sharing this weekend with you. But right now, I'm going to share an interview with Carzzy. Carzzy, talk to me about how you've been developing your relationship with Labrov in the bot lane, because in previous matches this split, we've seen some difficulties, say, with your aggressive timings. There's been quite a few deaths in the first 14 minutes of the game. But today, you definitely cleaned up your act. So how have you been working on that?
So me and Labrov have some issues on stage usually, and I don't know, my relationship with him, we know each other for a long time. I've been playing with him for like 5 years now, I think, like from time to time, and we are putting a lot of emphasis in the practice and scrims on not inting, and today we could finally transfer it to stage, so that felt nice.
And people in Berlin here definitely appreciated your efforts. What do you think it was then? What was the thing that you did fix?
Sorry?
What did you manage to fix?
It's mostly awareness in the game. On stage, you don't see the game as clearly as you do in scrims. And then a lot of basic stuff can get you in a really bad position. So working on that is the most important for us.
And what's it like playing with a legend like Perkz as well? I've heard that he takes scrims very, very seriously. Has he been someone who's been working directly with the two of you and that bot lane performance?
And playing with him is pretty nice because he tries to help everyone and he's always looking for solutions. So you almost never feel lost with him. And yeah, he's been helping me and Labrov. I mean, he has definitely some insight on our role since he was playing bot lane himself. So yeah, he helps a lot.
And we've got to talk about Sivir as well. That's an interesting pick, given that it's been picked quite a lot in the LPL recently. Are you studying the LPL right now, trying to find ways, different ways into the meta, maybe to be ahead of the LEC game, I suppose you should say?
I definitely think that Sivir is strong because recently she just went through a rework and a lot of other regions started playing her. So I told myself that it might be pretty hard to play it into Aphelios, but then I saw, I think it was Jackie Love playing it into Aphelios and they look perfectly fine. So I was like, yeah, let's play it as well.
So who are you going to pick now then? Who else are you going to steal from the RPL?
I don't know. I mean, it's not that different from the LEC in the end. It's just, I don't know, more severe, nothing else.
Well, congratulations. Obviously, it's fairly tough in the standings right now, but you did everything you needed to do today to ensure that your team still has a crack at playoffs. So thank you so much for talking to me, Carzzy. Congratulations today.
Thank you.
As we head to break, you can listen to the Warner song of the week, Afraid to Feel, by LF System on the official LEC Spotify playlist. We will be back to dissect the Vitality win after this, so stay tuned.